Please have your seats. Thank you very much for coming back. And even to our Vice Chancellor, Islam University, Bahawalpur, we will serve for you tea here, right on your seat. I will ask someone to serve tea for you here. Now we are going to the first technical session, which is mainly a food, shall I call it security or insecurity? But that is the Ikrar Ahmad Khan Sahab, who is the Senior Fellow of Pakistan Academy of Sciences, still Vice Chancellor of Faisalabad Agriculture University, and many, many more. So I will not go into those details, sir. Over to you to handle the next session till whatever time you want. Please, sir, go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. President of Pakistan Academy of Sciences, Secretary General, Dr. Zabta Khan. We have in the audience Vice Chancellor, Islamia University, Bahawalpur. Ladies and gentlemen, face-to-face as well as our colleagues online. I will take you through a quick presentation to set the stage, and then we have a very, diverse set of speakers from across the world, from Canada, from Australia, from China, and from within Pakistan. And I'll then give the forum to them to discuss the issue. May I have the presentation on? So today's session basically challenges higher education to respond to food security in terms of research and policy. In my opinion, nowadays, all policies are revolving around SDGs, that commitments we have for 2030, and 11 of 17 of them, one way or the other, address agriculture and food security, and in particular, SDG 2, zero hunger. For Pakistan, in relation to COVID, for last 2 years or so, we have seen a lot of hue and cry about food security, with more than $7 billion direct food imports, including about $1 billion spent on wheat, which is our staple. Food insecurity is now a reality that we need to address very seriously. On top of that, the economy depends on agricultural exports, particularly rice, which is a major element of food security, as well as our dollar earner, and then cotton, which directly affects our edible oil supply in the food chain. But in addition to that, the policy response should also address the distributive injustice, the inflation. On the first of Ramadan, actually I have quoted this experience many times. I was at Tando Muhammad Khan near Hyderabad, and on that day in Tando Muhammad Khan, tomato was selling for 5 rupees a kg. In Karachi, same day the tomato was 20 rupees a kg. I flew back to Faisalabad and tomato was 50 rupees a kg. I myself personally verified these figures. So this is distributive injustice, and then we speak of inflation, and then poverty and inequalities. The media talks revolve around growth, because that's what the government is trying to send as a message. Surely the country has made a very good progress, 3.9% growth and 4.8% is the target for next financial year. But key element in those growth figures again are actually the crops. We have heard the minister in the inaugural session that 6 crops have actually made it happen. The growth that we are talking about, 4 major crops and 2 minor crops, which is potato and moong. But the real crisis actually revolve around stagnant yields of 4 major crops, which are wheat, rice, cotton, and sugarcane. We have better numbers for maize. And in terms of policy, many years ago, we wrote a policy document for the government. And we believe that there are 7 elements of policy in which academia, the R&D organization, the think tanks can make contribution and come up with doable proposals, which are land and water productivity, the response to climate change, lack of diversification, the stagnation, which I have already mentioned, and then most importantly, post-harvest losses and inefficient markets. non-transparent markets, monopolistic markets, manipulative markets. And then social disparity, I've alluded to already, and one of the stark reality is malnutrition. 40% of the population is one way or the other malnourished, particularly women and children. So the response from the forums like this one are extremely wanting. And I would like to mention here that currently the government has launched Prime Minister's Agriculture Transformation Program, which is very well thought of. But then this organization last year, due to COVID, conducted 22 webinars on agriculture and food security, exactly a year ago. And in those webinars, there were 3 on seed. And seed is the #1 policy priority of the government. And 2 of those 3 were actually chaired by Sayyid Fakhr Imam, who was the chair of morning session here. And then there were 2 on dairy genetics. And then both of those were actually chaired by the provincial livestock minister, Dreshik Sahib. We had policy and marketing webinars, which were chaired by Mr. Sartaj Aziz. And then we have debate on the investment in agriculture, which included inputs and input subsidies. So these are 4 elements of Prime Minister's Agriculture Transformation Program, which were actually very well deliberated from this forum a year ago. So we must take pride in saying that we did forewarn the policy makers that these are the key areas. But we do have some observations. The way government wants to implement these 4 priority areas which are identified in the ATP, and more deliberation is due on that, particularly in seed sector. One of the elements which government is proposing to conduct in the days to come is to privatize 4 research institutes, which are wheat, sugarcane, maize, and rice. These are 4 staple crops, and there's no developed world research system which have privatized or absorbed the public sector of the responsibility of undertaking research in these areas. So we think that this is a hasty decision. This has not taken stock of ground realities. This has actually taken the context of throwing baby with the bath. They always talk about the negative part. They never talk about the positive part, that in this country, 50 years ago, the wheat yield was 8 man per acre, which is now 30 plus, and progressive farmer takes 50. So why, after all, you are forgetting this, that this institute has done well? And same is the case with the you just heard the minister telling that we have harvested 8 million ton of maize, 8 million ton of corn. Only 5 years ago, it was less than 5. So the institutes are, contributing. There must be correction required. There must be opportunity to farm, but privatization is not the solution. It must be looked at carefully. And then in dairy genetics, the flagship which the current dispensation is trying to promote is that they want to import cattle semen at the cost of about 40 billion rupees. This country's milk industry is dominated by buffalo. And what good the cattle imported semen will do to the buffalo genetic improvement? We agree with the lack of supply of quality semen, but we do not agree with the import of exotic semen of cattle, which has very little relevance to the milk supply chain in this country. Similarly, they're talking about warehousing and silos, which we are a supporter of it. Dr. Kausar Malik, my co-host for this session, and I were directly involved several years ago in 2 enactments in Punjab government. One was Cattle Market Reforms Act, and the other was Punjab Agriculture Marketing Regulatory Authority. We actually drafted these 2 laws. Those laws are there. They are new laws. They're state-of-the-art laws. But then The devil in the details if they are implemented properly. And then about input subsidies, I'm of the strong opinion that these are elite captures. They are not going where they should be going. So there should be policy debate on what do we want on the inputs. Input subsidy. There are ways to do subsidy. If you look at cost of production of major crops, fertilizer will come into fraction of a percent as a cost of production of major crops. And we are, doling out billions in fertilizer subsidy, which actually does not get to the right. So there is the opportunity to debate these, and I hope that this forum will play active role. I will just make a mention that since higher education is going to be the front runner for today's debate in the second session in terms of what should be the policy response, and there is always much talked about role of universities. And then they start comparing apples and oranges. They talk about US land grant colleges, they talk about state agriculture universities in India, which are integrated models, triangular models, which have research, teaching, and extension under one roof. We are here running parallel systems, and universities are really not being run the way those university system, particularly the American land grant system, runs. In fact, we have I have compared just Indian system with Pakistani system, and in India it is very close to American land grant system, which used to be the case here until about early 60s. But afterwards we had university or academia a separate stream, and agriculture, research and R&D another stream. I'll close with this slide. If you go to most of the R&D system now, below is the fixed cost. And then you have the operational cost, which is thin line above. So it is also a case for investment. And we are not really making the right kind of investment. With these, few thoughts that I believe that are relevant to discussion, policy discussion in the days to come, and Pakistan Academy of Sciences could play a significant role. As I said, that last year we did a major effort. We could revisit that effort. All of those events are recorded and present on the website. We prepared briefs on all of them. They were also provided to the Academy, and I hope they are still on the website. We can sit down and revisit them and recreate this debate and try to come up with policy prescriptions. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, with this, I would like to now invite our first speaker, who is the keynote speaker, Professor Kadambos Sadiq, who is Director of Institute of Agriculture Sciences at the University of Western Australia, Perth. He is a global leader in agriculture, and I've had the pleasure of working with him for more than a decade now. We have done a lot of R&D work, human resource development in Pakistan and other countries. Actually, we met about 20 years ago in Oman. And ever since we have been working together, I had requested him to spare some of his precious time today. So I welcome Professor Sadiq to make his presentation. Over to you, Professor Sadiq.
Good morning, good afternoon here. Thank you, Professor Khan. And also I would like to thank the Academy for inviting me. I know they're conscious about the time. I'm going to share my slides now. Just to bear with me for 1 second. Can you see my slide there? Can you see my slide?
Yes, I think they are.
Thank you.
Yeah,
so I'm going to, within the brief time I have, I'm going to talk about the diversified food system to enhance food and nutritional security. We just heard from the Academy that the food and nutritional security is so important for the major part of the globe, particularly in the region. I'll just talk about global hunger and malnutrition and the prevalence of healthy diets, challenges facing the security, diversification, some examples, and draw some conclusions. Just before doing that, because it's a higher education forum coming later on, I'm coming from Western Australia, the second largest state in the world. The first one is somewhere in the United States. We have a small population, 2.6 million, and our university is very famous. We have been collaborating with a number of universities in Pakistan, particularly UAF, for the last 10 to 20 years. And Perth is a beautiful city. Those who haven't been, please do come. This is my university. As Dr. Khan has mentioned, we don't have agricultural universities. We have comprehensive universities in Australia. So everything gets integrated between disciplines. So Perth is the capital city of Western Australia. Very well internationally recognized university, top 100, and well-established industry partnership. What I mean, whether it is the medical science, ag science, or engineering, we translate that to the industry or the community. We are the Group 8 universities. There are 40 universities in Australia. The Group 8 leads the best research, intensive research and teaching. We got Nobel Prize in 2005, Professor Barry Marshall. I'm trying to have a seminar between him and the Academy with the help of Professor Khan. Inshallah, that will materialize. So he got his Nobel Prize in 2005 for medicine, the stomach ulcer, Helicobacter. Very close friend of mine. We have traveled together in many parts of the world. We do believe in ranking. Such a small university, we now currently ranked 85 in the world in the academic ranking of world universities. In agriculture science, we are number 1 in Australia and number 16 in the world. Just the ranking came out. And of course, this is based on metrics, not on survey. So this is so important for us and for the country. Now, coming to my talk, I think I advise everyone to read the report, the UNICEF report 2020, the food security and nutrition in the world. Wonderful papers there. But in essence, we have 690 million people in the world. Probably it is a bit more now with the COVID. Let's say 800 million still hungry and affected by hunger on the rise slowly. It continues at a rate and it will exceed 840 million by 2030. So are we going to achieve the sustainable development goal? I'm not sure. The COVID pandemic, which we heard, has added to the crisis, 130 million to undernourished people in the world. So that's also going to put a dent to the SDG. So the Asia-Pacific region, it is quite a lot, about 381 million, and continue to face high prevalence of malnutrition, 93 million stunted children under 5 years old. And that's about 30% of the population. And of course, sub-Saharan Africa, I'll show you a map on that. So if you look at the percentage of wasting and stunting in children under 5 years, you can see that I don't have the data for Pakistan, but the Pakistan situation is also not that good. Look at, for example, India, about 38% of the children under 5 are stunting. So enormous. I mean, look at Thailand, for example. The diversity of the food basket is fantastic in Thailand. As a result, they have very low 11%. That is achieved because of the late king realized the importance of diversity of food in the landscape, diversity of crops in the landscape, and hence Thai is an excellent example. So if you look at globally, about 22% of the children under 5 are stunted, and 7 sub-regions out of the 17 have high or very high stunting prevalence in 2019. And you can see that includes Pakistan, India, and quite a lot of sub-Saharan Africa. So prevalence of unhealthy diet is a very important component. The problem is we have been solely relying on wheat, rice, and maize, to some extent on potato. So in the developing country, particularly a lot of relevance on those 3 crops and less on other diets, which I have shown here at the bottom. So the unhealthy current food consumption, on the left-hand side, you have got the processed meat, red meat, trans fatty acids, sugars, salt, sodium, and high starch diet, particularly in the developing countries. So that's lead to malnutrition, risk of chronic diseases, non-communicable diseases, stunted children and obesity, and also pregnant and lactating mothers. So on the low consumption protective food side, we've got fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, and seafood, omega fatty acid, and so on. So some of them commonly now I'll call as neglected and underutilized crop. In fact, they should be called as future smart food crops. So just an example, for example, the amount of rice consumed in the region from Bangladesh to China still consumes a lot of rice. So the per capita consumption of rice in the region is far too much. So what are the challenges? So we have heard about the environmental degradation, unsustainable natural resources, particularly water, land, and biodiversity, more food with less resources, climate change, we heard again mentioning this morning, economic and social development, and high birth rate in some of the countries in the region. And of course, on the top of that, we have political unrest, wars, civil conflicts, which exacerbate the challenges and contribute to increased poverty, hunger, and malnutrition. So it's a multi-dimensional problem. Bridging the production gap. We have to bridge the gap because by 2050, let's say 9.5 to 10 billion people, we need more food. Of course, there is a lot of food waste. We need to address that. Limited yield potential of traditional crops like is very problem. Annual increase in global yields of rice, maize, and wheat are almost stagnant or slightly below 1% per annum. On the other side, the nutritional gap is increasing. That's why we're seeing obesity on one side and malnutrition, stunting and wasting because lack of nutrient-rich, nutrient-dense food. So we need to diversify the food system, which is essentially diversify the farming system. So what are the potentials there? So the definition is that a food system consists of elements that includes all those environment, people, input, process, infrastructure, institution, and activities that relate to the production, processing, distribution, marketing, preparation, and consumption of food. And the outcome is more important for us, activities, and namely nutrition and health status, socio-economic growth, equity, and environmental sustainability. That is the definition. So what we need interrelated and interdependence of component of the food production system, production, so we need to have the policy on one side and regional cooperation, institution and human capacity development. Of course, there are other inputs like post-harvest handling, distribution, marketing, and consumption. So what I want to say is that there's no point in going and pondering on one aspect. You need to take a holistic approach. And I want to emphasize the government of the day, whichever country, they have a significant role to play. I just heard from Professor Khan, privatization of the plant breeding centers or agricultural research station. One need to be very, very careful. And it can be done in some advanced countries where it is not a major issue, but we need to be very careful there. What are the futures of current agriculture and food system? So agriculture production relies on few staple crops I mentioned, and making farming more vulnerable, environmental shock, and also the market fluctuations. Limited diversity in the food system I mentioned. So therefore, it is absolutely essential to diversify the food system for a balanced diet and enhanced adaptation to climate change. So you got fruits, vegetables, pulses, it depends upon the country, nuts and seeds, whole grains, polyunsaturated fatty acids, seafood, wherever you got. So both commonly known as traditional underutilized crops. Some examples, one of our recent papers in Nature Plants, looking at the foxtail millet, drumstick, moringa, elephant foot yam, taro, which is really tolerant to transient waterlogging. What is this nutritional value? They're rich in macro and micronutrients, including iron, zinc, selenium, and calcium. Many vitamins like carotenoids, vitamin B complex, and so on. Considering their nutritional importance, the UN General Assembly declared 2021 as the International Year of the Fruits and Vegetables. Pakistan is blessed with a lot of fruits and vegetables. We heard from the chairman, the mango in Pakistan. Social importance of traditional and neglected underutilized crop or future smart crops. And good number of these crops are already existing, well adapted to the marginal soil, harsh environment, and resilient to climate change. They play an important role in cultural traditions and heritage in the subsistence agriculture. Despite their great nutrition and adaptation, they were replaced by the modern agriculture, such as rice, wheat, and maize. So the multidimensional benefits are food and nutritional security of these crops, resilience to climate change, adaptation to harsh environments, low input agriculture. By doing this, we are going to conserve the biodiversity and culture diversity in a landscape, and it also will improve the livelihoods and rural development. I'll show you some example. Essentially, it should lead to economic and social development. And the global interest in this crop started way back, Convention on Biological Diversity, Brazil, 1992. Then, of course, FAO, International Technical Conference on Plant Genetic Resources in Germany in 1996. And you got various examples. And you may just take example as quinoa, which is traditionally grown by the Andean mountains 3,000 to 4,000 years ago. Now it's a wonderful food all over the world, including in your country. And it has got so much of nutrition, vitamin B complex A, and so on. So the Peruvian community now export, they also consume, and it becomes a major product in international supermarkets, including in your country. So the FAO declared International Year 2013, and as a result, there has been significant promotion, and as a result, it is now seen as a major crop in various farming systems. Pulses, I don't need to talk about it. Again, the chairman told about the importation of lentils and chickpeas into Pakistan. And we all know that it is the poor man's meat, but it is no more because of the scarcity and high protein, amino acids, which complements with the cereals, particularly lysine, rich in iron, zinc, calcium, and good quality carbohydrates, means not easily digestible carbohydrate, which is good for your hind gut, and high in dietary fiber. And in addition to that, the legume can fix up to 70 to 200 kilogram nitrogen per hectare, and that's equivalent to 20 to 22 million tons of nitrogen per year in the globe. High water use efficiency, carbon-nitrogen ratio, and so on. So it can lead to a negative carbon footprint. In fact, I just got a paper soon coming in PNAS, the Proceedings of the National Academy of Science, about all this aspect. Take, for example, lentil in 90, 61, 63, which was a very minor crop globally, 3%. Now you look at 2009 to 11, it is 15%. So from a minor crop, lentil has increased, chickpea has also increased to 36%, and faba bean, in fact, declined, but that's a reaction to markets and the need. In the National of the Year of Pulses 2016, I was lucky or fortunate to be designated as the ambassador for that program. And as a result, we have promoted that vigorously in various parts of the world, including in Pakistan. And we summarized that into a very interesting paper in Nature Plants. And the main point I want to say is that don't neglect the legumes, and that can compromise human health and sustainable food production. One point I want to point out here, R&D and extension effort in pulses are much low compared with the three major cereal crop. For example, at that time when we calculated 175 million per annum is only spent on 13 pulse crops, whereas in the case of rice, wheat, and maize, it could be billions and billions of dollars. My conclusion, Chair, because I know I'm conscious about the time, rediscovering Asia's forgotten crops to fight chronic and hidden hunger. We just published that in Nature Plants. Anyone wants, please do contact, I'll give you that. Basically, the food system production, processing, labeling, and packaging, distribution and marketing, consumption. And then that will lead to healthy diets, diversified nutrition, labeling regulations, advertising, food-based dietary guidelines, healthy diets, win-win for the community and win-win situation for the farmers. There are examples. So for example, I mentioned about how Thai people are doing very well, parts of Nepal are doing very well, the Akshay Patra, the school children's midday meal and breakfast program. So we need to get some of these smart foods into the into the school breakfast program, in the soldier army program, and so on, so that there will be a market. And that's where the government has to play a role. Then the farmers will start growing crop. You should not compare the yield of rice versus, for example, amaranth or one of the vegetables, because you should really look at the nutritional value and how that's going to help to achieve that so-called nutritional security. I won't go into the details. Again, we can start from genetic diversity, selection and cultivation, harvest, value addition, marketing, and final use. Finally, we want to have an impact on improved nutrition, income, and other livelihood benefits. And again, quite a lot of these summarized in an FAO publication, which I was lucky to be a co-editor with Dr. Xuan Li. We also done similar things in the mountain region. Again, we can bring some of these crops into the mountain region. There is a publication on how can we harness mountain agriculture for zero hunger in Asia. So last slide, the conclusion and recommendation. So the current food system must be transformed by diversifying and incorporating more commonly used fruits, vegetables, and traditional underutilized crops, which I call future smart food crop. Healthy diet will certainly provide more protein, macro and micronutrients, and cognitive development of the next generation of the young children. I'm particularly keen on that. And we need to target a traditional and underutilized crop deserve special attention, but their adaptation to harsh environments and low input system makes them very easy to incorporate into the system. Policy has to change. It's not just about research alone, so we need to bring the policy. Incorporating this into the national food security and nutritional strategy policies. Encourage investment in scientific research, both public and private, so that we can rapidly adopt this technology. More importantly, we need to increase the awareness of the producers and consumers, like what I showed with regard to quinoa. Then there will be demand, then the supply will go as well. And coordination capacity development, because there's not a lot of knowledge in the scientists, because they have been working on wheat, rice, and maize. So in the universities like yours in Pakistan, you need to bring some of these units into the thing, and we need to develop a next generation agronomists and breeders in this area. And this innovative platform will allow greater access to information, technology transfer to all stakeholders, and components of the food and value system. And this will lead to definitely a number of components, 1, 2, 6, 12, 15, 5, 13, and 17 of the SDG goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sadiq. It's absolutely on the spot. We have set a, you have set a very good stage for rest of the speakers to address the audience with the lens of policy and where the food security needs to be properly, the way it should be looked at. Okay, so due to shortage of time, we may not be able to do some interactive Q&A, but at the end, if we have space, we will do some Q&A. I would now like to invite our second speaker, Dr. Sadruddin Siddiqui, who will speak about plant genetic resources management under pandemic constraints and context. He is he is a chief scientist at National Agriculture Research Center, Islam.
Pass for inviting me, and you know that without the plants, we think that the world would not look so beautiful and fragrant, but they are the primary producers of food that we eat. And if we lose this plant, we will lose our food and no more life on this earth. The food that is produced here, it gives rise to different cultures, food habits. And some part of the world, some food is produced and some on the others. So if Japanese, they eat a different type of rice, and Pakistani, we eat a non-sticky rice. If we are producing non-sticky, we cannot export to Japan. So the trade and all many things depend on what we produce and what we consume. So the trait of the quality of the what it is going to be produced depends on the genes which reside in the chromosomes, and that give rise to different diversity that we can see. A single gene can make a great difference. The green revolution that we speak about was only a single base pair change that has been reported, and it brought a revolution. So every single gene is very important, and we need to conserve this for food security, because these material comes in as germplasm. They are used by the breeders, and then the crop is improved, and that it's registered varieties, and that goes to the farmers that produce the seed. So there are two aspects. One is with the breeders and the genetic resources they have, and the material that is with the farmers that they are using for production. So germplasm used for crop improvement, it is with the PGR, breeders and researchers, and in the gene bank. And germplasm for production is with the companies, farmers. So diversity matters. If we have a single species or single variety, and if it is infected with a disease, like in Pakistan, the banana bunchy top virus, 90% of the crop was eliminated. But if we had diversity, that now we have 4 different varieties growing, if one is inflicted with some disease or some pest, we can survive on the other 3. So we need to have diversity. Similarly, Pakistan is 5th for the climate change affectee, and not only the fields where the farmer is growing, even the institutes, they are being devastated and losing their total material. So the only living planet can only sustain, and it has been thought, and the United Nations has given these sustainable development goals. And most of the important is zero hunger, our food, the plants on land and in water, all these genetic resource. So most of these are affected if we lose the genetic diversity. So there is one surah in Quran, Surah Quraysh. It reflects on the tradition of Quraysh as a bounty or as a gift that they can travel from one place to another. And the God says that due to this very thing, you should be thankful to the God that you can travel. So we never thought about that in this context much until we had this COVID-19 we have seen here, and we were restricted, engulfed the whole globe. The World Economic Forum funds that all the sustainable development goals since 15 has gone to reverse. So it has highly impacted all the economy. The bottlenecks that was created was the availability of inputs to the farming, notably labor for harvesting and fruits and vegetables, shutdown of the processing plants, and ongoing disruption of freights, flights and ships all stopped. So the perishable things were most affected by that. So it was difficult to overcome these things on a very short period of time, and it was a good risk for. So those countries who were doing export for with a very short time, they were lost completely. For example, in Horan, in Kenya, they were producing flowers, and that was their only economy. So they had lost for 8.5 billion floral trade was down to drain. So other methods were adopted that the transportation to the consumer was affected very greatly. So you can see on the Google search, it was online availability was checked, and it got the peak in April. So many mushrooming of these companies emerged for online supplying and delivery of fruits and vegetables and grocery items. It was the boom. And from $3.6 trillion to it doubled the impact on this economy. So other things to come up with how to deliver. The role of drones in agriculture is being exploited, not only for data and for managing and for transportation of goods. Similarly, people are thinking that they should produce the food where it is near to their consumer. So vertical farming and urban farming is a concept already developed, but now it is flourishing at a very high speed. The role of robotics in agriculture is being sought not only for harvesting, also for packing and processing, because of the labor shortage that has happened due to the COVID. So the germplasm that we preserve is very important. And for conservation, we have the strategies for ex situ conservation and in situ. So we have gene bank that we maintain the germplasm and field gene banks and in vitro. So we need to have develop more gene banks at national level. And those countries that do not have the gene banks, they should make policy and make their gene banks so that they can conserve. So we are having a project with Comstack and working with OIC countries for that. Hopefully it will mature. So in Pakistan, we are keeping the material at 25 years, 50 years, and 100 years at different temperatures and storage conditions. For the farmers, we need to have the community seed banks. We are lacking in that. We don't have community seed bank in Pakistan, and the government should take some steps so that they can secure the seed for 2-period cultivation and maintain all the diversity before it is replenished. And we can have the record of cropping production with that and access to the seed to the farmer. And we should not rely on hybrid seed import totally, because it is a matter of disaster in such conditions like COVID. So the biggest risk of food security is not with food availability, because food was being produced in the countrysides, in the farm, but it was the access to. So we have to develop some methods so that the access is made more available. So way forward is that we should find a whole delivery system, online shopping, drones and Internet of Things, robotics, vertical and urban farming, gene banks for safety duplication locally. Now there is only one safety duplicate gene bank in Norway, the Svalbard Global Seed Wallet, where all the world is securing their safety duplication. So we should think about that to develop locally our safety duplication and the community seed bank. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Sadiq. You have, saved us some time. We're grateful. Now we have our next speaker, Dr. Wu Bingfang, who is going to speak to us from Chinese Academy of Sciences. His title of the talk is Crop Watch for Ensuring Food Security Under COVID-19. Can we connect with Dr. Bingfang?
Yes, thank you for invitation to give me opportunity to talk about. And can you see my screen? Hello, can
yes,
you see
sir. We can hear you.
Okay. So thank you again for inviting me to the presentation here for the Global Watch for ensuring food security and COVID-19. I'm Wu Bingfang from Chinese Academy of Sciences. And
you have
yes?
to share your screen from the green button.
Can you see my screen?
No.
Cannot see my screen. Screen. Okay.
Okay, now it's coming. Yes.
Good.
Please go ahead.
Okay. So as we're talking already a lot, food security is one of the key issues. particularly for the regions, and especially on the COVID-19 and desert locust, the flooding also threatened the food security in the regions. And so one of measures to address food security is to the global monitoring, to have real-time or near real-time information for the food protections. And this information can improve food information availability and the quality and the transparency using the new technologies such as those observations, remote sensors, and also can provide information for the farmer in season warnings for farmer management. All those things. And but the global monitoring works is for the most of developing countries. There are lack of capacity in obtaining and accessing up-to-date global protein information. Although this information is very essential for the country governance and also for the securing food supply. And most of our countries, particularly in developing countries, who have to dependency on the information provided by the third parties. And this can also bring a risk for the country to take risk based on these information, because sometimes a delay or sometimes not is not verified. But this is the reason for this is because to establish this global monitoring systems need big financial technical people to maintain or to develop and maintain and operational these kind of systems. So these issues concentrate in developing countries to set up, operate, and maintain global monitoring facilities. Even they have some systems, but for most of them, it's not operational. And take time to work on that. So we are developing a platform called the Global Watch Cloud. Here I'm going to introduce briefly. The Global Watch Cloud is including 4 components. Global Watch processing. We process all the data in the listed components, and also all the information indicators processed are indicated, are stored in the database. So then you can use Global Explore to explore all those information. And the third component is a Global Project. That means we are using this information to analyze the global condition, global situation of the world. And then we publish the bulletins, both in Chinese and in English. So this is the Global Cloud. And this cloud we are put on the Alibaba Cloud. So if you type in globalwatch.cn, you can access these platforms, these services. And all these Global Cloud are developed into the API. So all functions, service are developed in the API format. And the users or stakeholders can access all these APIs to do the management of data processing for all those workers. And this is one of examples for API. You can call this API through the changing the parameters to use your own data and also to the computing resource. So all these APIs are available from the Alibaba Cloud. This is a demonstration of how it works. And in summary, the Global Cloud has 32 indicators, which are already in the cloud, and the people can use it. And this cloud API can be accessed from everywhere. If you can access internet, then you can call these APIs to work. And you don't need investment on the computing infrastructure, storage, etc. You just need the code indicator to do what you want to do. And these indicators can be customized to improve and promote your ownership. All indicators can be customized for your country, for your region, or for your need. And also some indicators can be custom calibrated according to your own needs. And also for country needed to regional, or even you can go to the country district, provinces, or the townships as you wish. And after customizations, the country, in fact, can cover all your own monitor system by yourselves. And the CloudWatch can do the food security early warnings. There are several indicators who can provide the early warning information for the food security. One of is what is global land are used in the current seasons. So this indicator can provide early information how much global land are used in current season. So which is a good indication for the global production. And also another indicator is agro-meteorological risk index, which is following global developments to see how agro-meteorological effect to the global growth. And also some indicator can monitor the severe drought to see how the drought affects agriculture in the field to the global development, or how which is dying off, or is how the global affect the global growing. And also we provide early outlook to the countries or regions in the current seasons, favorable or unfavorable to all of us. So it's a list of 40 information. And for ourselves, for the CloudWatch teams, we are using this CloudWatch system to do the hierarchy analysis from global level to the regional level, to the national level, or to the sub-national levels. We are doing the global levels for the agro-climate indicators, and also for the global regional major production zones. We are looking at how the global land are used by the farmers, what is the drought effect, and how many global intensity to see how the land are used by the farmers. Then we look at 34 countries over the world. Together is 85% of our total global production. For some big countries, such as in China, we are looking at sub-national levels. And this hierarchy analysis is there are two pillars. One pillar is on administration levels, from country to province to country to the global. Another one is ecological zone, from agricultural zone to the climate zones. So it's a pillar, two pillars to working on the analysis. Based on this analysis, we are publish bulletins for seasonal bulletins and annual bulletins, both in Chinese and in English, and release every the end of the season. And this bulletin now has been downloaded from the stakeholders over 130 countries. Every time we release the bulletins, individual users download these bulletins, which is actually enhance the transparency of a global agricultural policy. We are providing another individual information sources for the global food productions information. And under COVID-19, since early last year, once COVID-19 occurs, there are some key issues happens. For example, in the low Mekong regions, there are severe some drought productions. So some countries are using these information to say maybe cause some COVID-19. So we are monitoring the low Mekong country how the drought affects in this sensitive period, and we conclude that overall the favorable conditions and the productions was observed during rainy season. But during the drought season, actually there are some drought and 5%. But since it's not a major global cooling season, so the impact is not so big. And also we are looking at China also because early 2020 last year is the travel is limited. So also there's affection to the farmers' productions. So we are using Global Watch to look how the early rise in China and also wind crops, wind wheat, how is affected by the COVID-19. But actually, it's for the early rise, since the government has pushed a lot, maybe up, the early rise is planting in fact is increased, and wind wheat has no problem at all. But in this year, early this year, when we look at globally, we find COVID-19 has a negative impact to the global food productions. You can see on maize, rice, wheat, and soybean. Also, global production, all these food crops has decreased from compared to the 2020. Partially it's because of drought, but also has impact because of the COVID-19. For example, in India and Pakistan, the wind wheat normally is common irrigated, and the cultivated area usually are less affected by the rainfall. But in this year, the wind wheat area decreased in India and Pakistan 2% and 3%. I think partially is because of COVID-19 effect of this. And on the other hand, China has is increased a little bit. And also in the soybean and the large product, soybean in the Brazil and the large product in Myanmar also has dropped 4.7% and 7.7%. Partially also because of a drought and also COVID-19. So which one contributed to how much? It's hardly to separate it. But the COVID-19 in fact is affect the food production, food production. And also we are promote Global Watch for the developing countries as well. We have working together with developing countries to transfer Global Watch cloud to the countries. For example, under supported by the World Bank, and also National Science Foundation. We are working with Portugal, with Mozambique Ministry of Agriculture, and now we are developing this global cloud for the Mozambique. This is a rural solution portal. It's the kind of artifacts best cases we are promoted by that. We are develop CloudWatch for Mozambique and using Portuguese interfaces, and also we customize CloudWatch to for Mozambique according to their requirements using Portuguese interfaces, and also incorporate the regions or district they are interested in systems, so they can monitor by themselves based on provincials and the districts, not only for countries, and they can upload their own data to make high resolution processes of this. We are after customizations, we do 2 or 3 times training. So after trainings, they are able to use this CloudWatch Mozambique to do their own monitoring, and then the results they are of monitoring are incorporated into national meteorological bulletins of Mozambique, which we provide information so they can put it into their own national meteorological bulletins and powered by CloudWatch. At the same time, we also do the training for lower Mekong countries, including Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, and Myanmar, for all these workers. And we hope we can do the same for the Mozambique for all those countries. And we are also, and after trainings, the countries to do their own using CloudWatch to do their own analysis and incorporate for release to their own countries. And also we this year together with participants join us. And after training, they can also 6 countries can use CloudWatch to do their own monitoring and analysis. Like Algeria, Myanmar, Nigeria, Syria, Thailand, they are using animalities. They are using CloudWatch to do their own monitoring and analysis for their own self. And this information they can download for their own use. Also can incorporate into their CloudWatch seasonal bulletins of releases. And also we are working with Thailand. CloudWatch can acting as engines. They can produce all indicators by the CloudWatch. Then they can download these indicators and input it into the Thailand systems, standalone system agri-map. So information is processed in the CloudWatch and feed into the agri-map systems, Thailand systems. So this CloudWatch is acting as processing engines. For the agri-maps, they don't need to develop these processing algorithm or functions. They're just using CloudWatch to process, then download and put it into their own system. So make online, offline, link it together, working together, make it more efficient. And the information they can do it by themselves every time. So working on this, we are hope the CloudWatch can be used by more countries, but specific requirement from a national office is very important for the customizations and also for trainers. And also, we need to find a proper department from countries can working together with us, because this is essential. We are not only those organizations who are really interested and it's their own businesses. Then CloudWatch really can support and provide help. So we hope we can closely collaborate with also working on the CloudWatch and also in the education students. You are welcome to stand the student here to learn more on the CloudWatch. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Bing Fang. He has given us a very good idea, which the Agriculture Development Commissioner sitting in the room might be taking note of. He's talking about crop watch cooperation, and Pakistan is missing from that. Dr. Gu, idea for you. All right. We have heard about diversity, genetics, surveillance, the sea and sports systems, crop watch, and during diversity talk, Professor Sadiq mentioned pulses, legumes, and the enrichment of our diets. One of the serious missing link in our diets is the missing soybean. Professor Bing Fang actually talked about reduction in 4 crops worldwide due to COVID, which were wheat, maize, rice, and soybean. So we want to hear more about soybean, but before going to soybean, I do want to make a response to our speaker that in Pakistan, 3 of the 4 crops which are grown here, all of them have actually shown a gain. We have not lost on productivity and production. In fact, the production and productivity of all 3 crops has gone up. Thank you. So our next speaker is a young scientist, Dr. Muhammad Ali Raza, who has been recently put to work by Islamia University Bahawalpur, and we are very fortunate to have with us also the Vice Chancellor in person. This is a product of Chinese collaboration again with another Chinese university. So I invite Muhammad Ali Raza to speak about soybean intercrop. For those of you who are not familiar with the cropping systems of Pakistan and the food security, it is heavily dependent on 4 crops. And 3 of the 4 crops are kharif crops, rice, maize, and sugarcane. Whereas the 4th crop is rabi crop, which is wheat. Soybean all over the world is a matching crop to maize, which is a kharif crop. So the competition between maize, rice, cotton, sugarcane hardly provides space for bringing in another kharif crop, even though we are importing soybean for meeting our edible oil needs, as well as an essential ingredient of poultry feed. Poultry being our major industry is dependent on imported soybean. So there has been a dream discussion going on for several years now that how to incorporate soybean into our systems. So one of the options which Muhammad Ali has been experimenting in Pakistan is intercropping. So we'll hear more from him. Muhammad Ali Raza.
Okay. First of all, thank you for providing me this opportunity to share my research results, which I have obtained during the pandemic situation, because I have completed my PhD in 2019, December. After that, I came back to Pakistan and started research on maize soybean strip intercropping system. We started this research with the collaboration between Sichuan Agriculture University at China and Islamia University Bahawalpur. And we are conducting several experiments at different stations in Pakistan. So the topic of my presentation is strip intercropping, a way to increase soybean production in Pakistan. So first of all, if you see this slide, you will understand some phenomena. The first thing is that in 1927, we have just 2 billion people on this earth. Now in 2020, we have 7.5 billion. What it means that world population is increasing day by day, while the cultivated land is decreasing. So the problem is how to increasing food demand with increasing population is a growing challenge for researchers all over the world. There is another picture. I took this picture from a paper published in Nature by Professor Fusu Chang from China Agriculture University. If you see the left side of the picture, there is a farming land near the big buildings. But after 30 years, that farming land converted into big roads, factories, and housing societies. So how to increase crop production with limited available cultivated land? This is a big challenge. In this picture, you can see that the farming land is converted into another purpose. Then food demand is increasing with increase in population. On the other hand, cultivated land is decreasing due to urbanization and industrialization. Therefore, higher inputs are required for ensuring food security. However, higher inputs in agriculture production arise several environmental problems such as the over-fertilization, water eutrophication, and fish death. And now the global warming is one of the main issues. Then high yield and agriculture sustainability are the main challenge for today's agriculture in the world. So Pakistan is facing similar type of condition which China is facing. In China, the population is increasing day by day, but their cultivated land is decreasing day by day. So then they decided to go for intercropping, because in intercropping, we can grow 2 or more crops at one time and we have more yield. And what it means? We can get higher land equivalent ratio. So in China and all over the world, there are 200 intercropping systems which are playing important role in food production. But in 200 intercropping systems, the most 2 important cropping systems are maize soybean intercropping system and maize potato intercropping system. So these are some pictures of different intercropping systems which are being used in China and all over the world. So as I have mentioned, the main 2 intercropping system are maize potato intercropping system and maize bean intercropping system. But in maize potato intercropping system, yes, we can obtain high crop yield, but it has some trade-offs such as the decreased soil fertility, it requires more inputs, and it is unsustainable. While the maize bean intercropping system are the sustainable intercropping system, they require less inputs such as the nitrogen application, and it improve in soil fertility and productivity. Recently, a research paper was published by Professor Wopke from Wageningen University in Nature Plants. They concluded that in all intercropping systems, the best partners in intercropping are maize and soybean. Why they are the best partners? Because maize is a C4 crop, while soybean is a C3 crop. Maize have a linear and long stature plant, while soybean has round leaves and short stature plants. Maize is a nitrogen consumer, but soybean is a nitrogen fixer. Then maize is rich in starch, while soybean is rich in protein and oils also. So why these crops are the best performing crops all over the world? There are some reasons, because both crops require same water, temperature, and light requirements. Both crops are grain crops and can easily be sown and harvested simultaneously, as they have the same growing season. So now I will come back to my PPT. In Pakistan, we are importing soybean almost 300 to 400 billion rupees every year from other countries. And our poultry industry is growing at a 10% rate. If we did not started to grow soybean in Pakistan, then in few years, we will equal the import bill with edible oils. So this is the best time to introduce soybean in Pakistan, and we need to increase the soybean production in Pakistan. But if we increase the soybean area in Pakistan, it will decrease the cultivation area of other crops. So why intercropping is important for soybean production in Pakistan? First, if we increase the planting area of soybean, it will decrease the planting area of other major crops such as cotton and maize. And if the cultivation of soybean in sole cropping system is less profitable as compared to other major crops. In Pakistan, we do not have a high yielding soybean varieties. If we encourage the farmers to sow soybean as sole cropping system, it is just giving them 12 to 15 months per acre, which is not economical as compared to maize, sugarcane, and other crops. Then every year, Pakistan is importing large amount of soybean seed and meal for food and feed industries, which is increasing our import bill, low soil fertility and productivity due to the continuous cultivation of soil crops. In soil crops, we are cultivating continuously exhaustive crops such as the maize, wheat, then sugarcane and cotton. Benefits of strip intercropping system. The pictures which you are seeing in this PPT, all are my experiments picture, which I conducted in China and Pakistan in different districts. You can see the growth of maize and soybean also in these pictures. If we go for strip intercropping system of cereal and legume, then we can increase land use efficiency, water use efficiency, and radiation use efficiency. It will improve soil fertility and productivity that ultimately will increase crop yields. We can increase the soybean production area without decreasing the production area of other crops such as maize, and it will reduce weed infestation, increase crop diversification, less chances of crop failure in intercropping systems. Farmer can produce 4 crops in a year instead of 2 crops. Then, as I have told you, during the pandemic situation, I have conducted several experiments on strip intercropping system in Pakistan. Here I will share the results of 2 locations, one in Vihari district and other is the Bahawalpur district. Both experiments we have done in spring season. The average maize we obtained in strip intercropping system was 8.2 tons per hectare with strip intercropping technology, while soybean we obtained 1.8 tons with strip intercropping technology. Here the important thing is that we use the Chinese variety Nando 12. It gives 1.8 tons. In the next demonstration site, we use the Pakistani variety, and you will see the difference in maize yield, soybean yield. Maize soybean strip intercropping system achieved the land equivalent ratio of 1.45. Compared to soil cropping system, a slight yield loss of maize in intercropping technology has compensated with high yield of soybean. Then the second location, maize was, we obtained maize 8.6 tons per hectare. Soybean here we use NARC's variety 16, and the yield you can see we obtained 1.3 tons with intercropping technology. Maize soybean strip intercropping technology here achieved the land equivalent ratio of 1.47. So what is the land equivalent ratio? What land equivalent ratio mean if we grow maize on 1 acre and we obtain 100 mon. If we adopt the strip intercropping technology, we can obtain 147 months per acre. This is in the meaning of land equivalent ratio. Then numerous farmers showed interest in learning our technology to produce maize and soybean simultaneously with reduced inputs. These are the field demonstration of maize soybean strip intercropping technology at Bahawalpur, Punjab, Pakistan. Here we are testing 2 different systems. Both systems we adopted from China. Both system was developed basically my Professor Van Yang. He spent 21 years to develop this system. In Pakistan, the main problems which we are facing now is that we do not have an intercropping specific maize and soybean varieties, but still we are getting high yields. The reason is that in Pakistan we are obtaining so much sunlight. If I give you the correct data, in Sichuan, every sunlight is 3,500 megajoule per year, while in Pakistan, in Bahawalpur and the same province, we are obtaining 6,300 megajoule per year. What it means, we are not using that sunlight efficiently. If we use this sunlight efficiently, then we can obtain higher crop yield easily. And we are in contact with Sichuan Agriculture University because recently a MOU has been signed between Islamic University, Bahawalpur and Sichuan Agriculture University. And now the Sichuan Agriculture University will give us the intercropping specific maize and soybean varieties, then maize, soybeans, intercropping, farming technology, and then the herbicides. And they will give us the varieties, the farming technology with rights. What it means we can produce in Pakistan easily. Then I did some economic analysis. If farmers adopt our strip intercropping technology, they can obtain $124 per hectare more with strip intercropping technology as compared to soil maize. And if they go for soil soybean, they can obtain almost $620 per hectare. The conclusion, we claim that the maize soybean strip intercropping technology has a significant potential to resolve the conundrum of maintaining or even enhancing the maize and soybean production by using less less land area and decreasing environmental effects. For instance, in 2020, Sol maize was cultivated on 3.5 million acres in Pakistan, and it produced 7.2 million tons of maize. If we just replace the Sol cropping system of maize with our new strip intercropping technology, then we can produce 6.1 to 6.5 million tons of maize, along with 0.9 to 1.3 million tons of soybean. Presently, Pakistan is importing 1.7 to 1.9 million tons of soybean from other countries. With this new technology, we can reduce our import bill by 76% by locally producing the soybean up to 0.9 to 1.3 million tons. Then notably, soybeans valued at 3 times the value of maize in the local market. Thank you very much. You all are welcome to Sichuan Agriculture University and Islamic University, Bahawalpur.
Thank you, Dr. Muhammad Ali Raza. Very exciting idea. He speaks about harvesting solar energy. He thinks that we have too much of sunshine, and our conversion of sunshine into the chemical energy, the weight that we harvest is inefficient. So the scheme he's trying to present is very exciting in the sense that we are an energy deficient country, and any way of harvesting renewable energy, free energy, are to be looked at. And this thought process is not yet anywhere in the system. You know, we're talking about solar panels. We're not talking about solar harvesters in the form of chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is the biggest solar harvester on the earth. So he's talking about putting more chlorophyll in the field, in a geometry, in a design by which maximum incidence of light gets trapped by the chlorophyll molecules. Ji. So you're inducing them to stay for the day. Okay. Okay. Captive audience. Okay. Dr. Raza has mentioned that our Islamia University Bahawalpur and Sichuan University are already in collaboration. We hope that this collaboration flourishes. Dr. Gu is watching, and I hope he will be also helping to take the greater steps in this direction. Particularly, he's talking about transfer of technology, seed, herbicide. And I don't know if I missed out, have you talked about mechanization? Machines, because he's talking about redefining the corn production system. We are growing 2 crops of corn. We are not doing any intercrop in corn. And he's talking about doubling the cropping intensity by adding soybean into corn. And he has given a factor of 1 to 1.7, going from 1 to 1.7, primarily because of better solar harvest. Light ko better harvest kar raha hai. Okay, so our best wishes to Muhammad Ali Raza, but I've already suggested to him that sugarcane might be a better candidate than corn. Continue with corn intercrop, but test sugarcane as well. Because sugarcane plantation in Pakistan starts in August in Sindh and continues up to March. So there is opportunity for testing soybean as an intercrop. The space between the row-to-row space in sugarcane is actually wider than corn. Well, we have to test those things because we have never gone this way before. And also, in terms of light harvesting, corn grows faster, so it creates shade effect, whereas the sugarcane for the first 2 months is not there at all, actually. So that allows direct incidence of light on soybean. Keep it up. Okay. Yeah, ये पेपर हमें खा गए हैं तारमान साहब की मेहरबानी से. Okay, all right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And we move on to next pair of speakers. Another two very brilliant Pakistani, and they will actually complement the presentation of Dr. Wu Bengfang. They are one each in Canada and Australia right now. You can imagine the time difference between Canada and Australia. One in Nova Scotia and other one in South Australia. They will speak about Persian for efficient agriculture. Dr. Itazaz Farouk is associate professor at University of Prince Edward Island. Actually, it's beyond Nova Scotia. And then the other speaker, Dr. Azim Khan, is at University of New England. Both of them are our alumni from University of Agriculture, Faisalabad, and they are very elegant. They are doing a very elegant science. So Itazaz and Azim, over to you. Okay. Ji,
Thank you,
please
sir.
go ahead.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, Pakistan Academy of Sciences, for providing us this opportunity. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll straight away move on to the overview of our presentation. I'll talk about regional scale scenario, subcontinent and continent scale. I'll talk about challenges, opportunities, data-driven intervention. Some of them has been done, introduced by Chinese scientists, examples from Pakistan, and remote sensing of crop water use. And my colleague Itazaz from Canada, he will talk about precision agriculture at farm scale and soil and nutrient management and precision agriculture machinery. So our challenges, currently it is well covered by our previous speakers. I'll not spend time on them. Biggest challenge, if I would pick one from them, is the low land and water productivity. It is one of the biggest challenges in our agriculture. We are wasting huge amounts of water and producing less crop from the same amount of water. Definitely, flood irrigation still is dominant in Pakistan, although governments are spending in drip irrigation and other high efficiency irrigation projects, but still a huge amount of land is flood irrigated. Our water productivity is among the lowest, almost 10 times lower than the United States, and 3 times than India, and more than 2 times than China. So just a quick, a quick roundabout about these figures. We grow wheat around 20 million acres, and we apply 2-inch irrigation, and we apply 6 irrigations to wheat crop. As our water system is a supply-based system, definitely I can understand this argument that we cannot control water at farm. Farmers are restricted by Varabandi system. If it's their turn, they have to irrigate. But definitely this is a debatable issue, and there can be, solutions can be devised for that. But the opportunity is that we can survive wheat crop with 4 irrigations. And if we only save these 2 irrigations, which is 2 inches each, 3 inches each, it is almost 6 inches of water. And 6 inches of water with 20 million acre feet of land under cultivation, we are saving 10 million acre foot of water, which is more than Tarbela Reservoir. What are opportunities? So Earth observation systems are increasing in capacity, in availability, in data access day by day, and their resolution, ground resolution is improving. Overpass is increasing, temporal frequency, number of satellite images in a month is increasing, which is a big opportunity. This has never been the case in past. So like Dr. Wang Fang did is, we can do a study, we can monitor cropping systems sitting in one location. We do not need any extensive ground information to uncover this, this information. So this is a big opportunity, the availability of satellite information, and we can use that to predict crop yields And this is a case study from Bandhabag region, which is one of the largest sugarcane grown region in Australia. And we were able to predict sugarcane yield. This was done with the collaboration of Sugar Research Australia quite accurately. And imagine if you know, in Pakistan, we always there is a crisis whenever there is a crushing season, long queues, and there is traffic troubles, and then farmers are in trouble. They don't get paid, or maybe their crop is not assessed well, or they have trouble with the weighing systems as well. If we can assess crop yields in the farm, and then those farms are next to each sugar mill, you can imagine what change it can bring. This is another example before going into a case study from Pakistan, developed at our Applied Agriculture Remote Sensing Center. So we have mapped tree fruit crops in Australia. And in order to better model and in order to make a more informed decision, definitely you need to know the location and the region, the area under cultivation for each crop. Which is really critical of making further decisions. So this information is really helping the growers. You can see a link for that information. Also, there is an industry engagement web app. Our center is engaging with the industry and predicting crop yields at tree scale for these industries. Okay, so it has been highlighted that our food imports in Pakistan, I'm on Pakistan scenario, our food imports are more than 6 billion. Dr. Khan mentioned that last year maybe they were more than 7 billion, including 1 billion for wheat. So we recently completed, I think a couple years ago, a study while I was in Pakistan with Food and Agriculture Organization. And we developed crop suitability maps, and we redefined actually agroecological zones, because as I mentioned that there is now a great amount of Earth observations data available, and we can utilize that data to make policy decisions. So we developed crop suitability maps, and we uncovered many amazing facts. One of them is the areas which have potential to grow wheat crop, and where we are currently cultivating wheat crop, we can cultivate canola in those regions. And this was the case with many others. We actually developed 56 crop suitability maps. And this was meant to be an organic document. As I mentioned that the improving technology and scale of satellite observations is going to increase the more reliability and accuracy in these documents. This is one example. This was a model also developed at Agriculture University Faisalabad. I think it was initially for 6 districts. Soil samples were taken, and based on that soil survey, fertilizer recommendation based on nutrient management model is given to the farmers of these districts. So these prototypes and technologies in pockets, not a complete holistic models, but it is functioning and it is working. So this is an example case study from Sindh. Recently did, I think we completed this last month. So we were planning to bring some land into production around Halaji Lake in Thatta, and using satellite imagery, we did its vegetation analysis. And also we were able to estimate actual crop water use around the lake. This is really a game changer. So the ability to estimate actual crop water consumption from remote sensing, it can go a long way. It can improve our water governance, which is very, very crucial. And based on that, we can do targeted investment in irrigation schemes. We do not need to prescribe drip irrigation to each and every farmer of Pakistan. Maybe drip irrigation is suited to one land and water condition and not suitable to other. And also, we can do on-farm water management if we know actual crop water requirement and actual crop water use. For this kind of information and on-farm water management, weather information and access to weather data is really, really critical. So I would further ask my colleague, Dr. Etazaz, to move forward from here.
Yeah. Thank you, Azim. Thanks for the for controlling the slides. And so Azim briefly touch on the larger scale. I'll be going in more in the field scale, and we'll be introducing 3 case studies, which are very brief, and we'll try to go through those and see how they can be implemented and can be used in the Pakistan region. So the first one, as we all know, that will be soil is our primary medium, and that is exhausted, and we are low on organic matter. And if we can assess the soil fertility status, we can manage and then manage our inputs smartly. And then we will talk a little bit about sprayer technology and then crop water requirement. Next slide. So in order to manage our soil, so this is a case study from Prince Edward Island. We used a technology that we call it soil and topography mapping. So we did the mapping that is georeferenced, and we come up with our map. Next slide. And when we build this map, so this is something it look like. So you can see different colors, and then that is mapped with that SWAT tool. And then we prescribed, and we have different rate across the field. And we went with the Olympian strategy that we are feeding our best athletes so that we can generate more profitability. Next slide. So in this case study, so when we went on, so we have the check areas, which are control, or you can say the uniform traditional applications. Then we have the variable rate areas, and we made our spreaders are capable of changing the rates in those areas. Next slide. And when we did the calculation, so we have the 6 acres for the checkpoints and 10 acres for variable rate. Next slide. And this is the yield map. You can see there is a huge variation within the yield. So the greener dots are highly productive areas, and the red dots are low yielding areas, you can see, and it ranged from 10,000 pound per acre to the 50,000 pound per acre. Next slide. So then we did the comparison and see whether it was profitable to do that. If we go to choose with if we choose to go with the variable rate technology, and we found that we were able to produce 300 pound per acre more in variable rate areas, which turned out to be $36 more for the applied fertilizer. And then when we did the profitability analysis on that, the cost of doing that mapping was about $15. And the return on investment turned out to be about $21 just for potash application. And there could be other applications which we can use and apply. And here is the next visual snapshot, which is done with the SWAT mapping, then compared with the drone mapping with the NDVI and yield map. And we have a very good comparison, about 70 to 80% match, where the crop health was bad, we were getting the less yield, and then vice versa with the NDVI zones. Next slide. And then not only that, so we go with in Pakistan and in the rest of the world, usually we go with one consistent seed spacing. So the idea here was that if our soil is not good enough to produce, so we need to maybe change the seed spacing. So this is again a SWAT map. We use this as a tool to adjust our seed spacing. And the idea was that the red areas, they are low productive areas, are not as healthy soil areas. We will be spacing the potatoes out, and then in greener areas, which are productive areas, we will put the potatoes a little bit tighter so that we can generate more and kind of have a less of a pressure and can produce more yield. Next slide. And we did the emergence calculation. This is the plant emergence map that was done with RGB imagery. You can see different emergence scenarios and plant count and canopy cover. Next slide. And here are some images which are basically telling how many plants were there with the 15-inch spacing, then 17 and 18-inch spacing. Next slide. So when we did the yield comparison for the variable rate seeding, we found that in the productive areas where we put the potatoes a little bit together, we were able to produce significantly higher yield than the traditional spacing. And also, interestingly enough, in the low productive areas, when we spaced the potatoes out, we found that there was a less of a competition and we were able to increase the yield significantly. And we are exploring this in a more detail this year. So the next case study I want to share with you all is about the smart technology. We developed this sprayer for potatoes, and we using the artificial intelligence and machine vision, we collected all kind of images during the growing season with the different combination, healthy plants, diseased plants, weeds, their combination, and all kind of variation in cloud, sun, and partially cloudy, all those conditions. Next slide. So once those images were collected, we built our own database where we identified what is what. So in this image, you can see the lamb's quarter, which is a common weed in potatoes, so that is labeled. And then for the disease images, we also labeled, and we made that database. Next slide. So once that model was trained, you can see that as soon as it picked the weed, so it will create a rectangle around. So this was a lab testing which we did by running a validation data set to see how accurate we were, and our accuracy was more than 95%. Next slide. So once the lab testing was done, so the next step was to develop a prototype. So that contained the control box, cameras, solenoid valves, flow meters. We custom built this. And then once that was built, we tested it. Next slide. So this was the test we did in the parking lot. As soon as and we scattered different potato plants and weed plants around the parking lot. And as soon as it will pick the weeds, which is lamb's quarter in this case, it will open the nozzle. So again, this was the more like a lab test. Next slide. And then we field tested that sprayer for different weeds and diseases again. Again, the accuracy was over 90%. And now this year we are making some changes to the prototype and making it even more a better speed control and more consistent within those rows. And finally, we will be going the bigger scale so that we can cover the industry. Next slide. So in all the cases, when we did the savings analysis, we were able to save over 40% of the agrochemicals, which is huge agrochemical saving. Next slide. So in Pakistan scenario, so I did a bit of a cost estimation. So it to build this prototype, it will require roughly 5 lakh. And based on the applications we have, the rate on return will be very, very quick. I would say less than a growing season. Next slide. So the last case study I want to cover is to do the weather-based forecasting for crop water requirement. Next slide. So this case study, again, we did in Prince Edward Island. So we selected 4 weather stations. We had the data available for last 30 years. We used different parameters from the weather station data if we can do the crop water requirement. And bear in mind, we are an island, and in island, we are rain fed. And we don't have access to the water because there are limits set by the government that we cannot have excess water. Next slide. And we applied the convolutional neural networks to model that relationship and determine the crop water requirement, which is a newly emerging technology. That's a buzzword on the street, neural network these days, machine learning, artificial intelligence. Next slide. So when we did the evapotranspiration forecasting, so we used different deep learning models, and our accuracy was above 90%, that without doing the physical data collection, we were able to forecast the evapotranspiration, which we can link back with the crop water requirement. Next slide. And these are two sites, and those two sites were tested, and again, accuracy was above 90%. Next slide. And here is the variable of relative importance. You can see the maximum temperature, relative humidity, wind speed during the year. So those variables go up and down depending upon the crop water requirement. But more or less, the main contributors were the maximum temperature, relative humidity, and solar radiation. So if we have that data, we can model this relationship to determine the crop water requirement. Next slide. So when we did that for a testing period, and in 2016 and 2017, as I said, we are rain fed. You can see the black line, which is a solid line. So that is the actual requirement, which is calculated by the deep learning. And then the dotted line underneath that is the rainfall or precipitation, which we get during the growing season. So we want to fill that gap so that we can utilize our water efficiently. Next slide. So then we did the forecasting. So the idea here is that since the weather app gives us a weather for the week, we want to have a evapotranspiration app, which will give us the crop water requirement, and that will be linked with the weather data, so that we can know that how much is the precipitation we are getting, and then how much is the difference, whether the precipitation is good enough or we need supplemental irrigation. And the provincial government and federal government here in Canada, they are very keen and interested in this app and interface for the growing community. Next slide. And here is the more fluctuation, and you can see the error rate is about 1 millimeter per day, which is not nothing. So that means it's highly accurate, and you can see this, there is a weekly forecast using different models. Next slide. And based on this information, we had a small trial where we had 4 different irrigation systems which we tested. Next slide. And we set up that trial, we controlled the water, we applied based on the need. Next slide. And then here is the profitability analysis. You can see, irrespective of the irrigation system, whether it was drip or fertigation or sprinkler, the control, which is rain fed, the yield was significantly higher. So not only the yield was higher, but also the marketability of the potatoes was higher. Next slide. So some take home from this presentation, which we co-shared, Azim and I. So we need to look for the ways how we can go for the cost reduction using these innovative tools. Also utilize diverse information, that is the satellite data, weather data, and have a big data analytics so that we can use that data for the wise decision making and come up with the decision support tool and modeling. And then at the end, we want to integrate our data, instrumentation, prescription, so that we can ensure profitability and sustainability. And also, not only, since these are new technologies, we need to go for capacity building and train our young generation so that we can cope with the world's requirements. Next slide. At the end, I would like to acknowledge some of the collaborators for these case studies who provided the funding support. Thank you very much. We can take any questions.
We are really proud of both of you. It was about mechanization, precision, efficiency, marketability, and profitability, which are all at stake in Pakistan's agriculture. We lack mechanization, we are extremely imprecise, and then obviously that leads to inefficient agriculture. And who is suffering? Farmer is suffering and the consumer is suffering. You know, we produce less from the same land and water, as it was mentioned in the presentation, compared to what is being done in more efficient and precise agricultural systems. And finally, Itadal has raised a very important point that even if we bring in machines, all the computers, all the softwares, we need to invest into training and more human resource development so that we could make best use of the tools available or the technologies which are sitting in the shelf and not being put to use. Okay, so we move on and to our very best speaker, mentor of many of us, Dr. Kausar Abdullah Malik. He will join us virtually from FC College University, Lahore. Malik Saab has, has been an ardent supporter of biotechnology. He has founded so many institutions, and he continues with his campaign to make biotechnology a success in Pakistan. Unfortunately, we attempted just in one crop and totally destroyed that crop, cotton. So we have failed to make use of the best options, even in worst conditions. So over to you, sir, Dr. Kausar Abdullah Malik, biotechnology role in ensuring food security.
Thank you. Thank you, Ikrar, for, I want to compliment all the speakers. You see, it was so knowledgeable, and I'm excited on all this information that we have got, especially Dr. Sadiq, from Australia. I mean, his lecture was very thought provoking, and all other lectures as well. You see, they have been extremely useful, and I hope that we, take all this information into account while making our own policies. Okay, so I have a very brief presentation just to give you the activities and the status of agricultural biotechnology in the country, and to highlight some of the things that we have been doing at FC College. And let me begin my, where it is. I can't find exclusive offers. Is this the biotech? Can you all see this? Yeah. Okay, so I was allotted his title actually, biotech role in ensuring food security. You see, so food security is an area where many of the speakers have also talked about, and I thought that for once we should also share to tell you what food security is actually. We define food security when all people at all times have nutritious. I have highlighted this word nutritious, you see, because that is the basis of food security. Have nutritious food that meets their dietary needs and food preferences for an active and healthy life. So this is most important. That is this definition is the one which makes all estimates of all these surveys as Pakistan having about 40 or 50% population as food insecure. That is because the nutritious requirements are not being met, you see. Or in other words, that everyone has the right to adequate food in a quantity and quality sufficient to satisfy their dietary needs. One of the key challenges going forward is to shine a light on food quality to address hidden hunger, you see. Food quality is another area, in addition to nutritious, and food safety. These are the key words when we think of food security, you see. So therefore, and in addition to this, food security has its own dimensions, and that we always say that it is covered by 3 A's, that is availability, accessibility, and affordability. You see, all our R&D is actually more concentrated on the availability part, And we, because if we have enough food, only then we can talk of accessibility and affordability. You see, so availability is the key to all our efforts to do, to secure food, you see. Uh, so since we are talking about biotechnology, I'm sure that everybody is aware of the role of biotechnology, that because of the immense developments in molecular biology and life sciences, we are now able to move one gene from one place to another and have a complete control over the mechanism of plant production, and also in human beings, also in animals as well. So it has a big excitement all over on the developments that have occurred in this particular area, you see. So I will just briefly talk about the role or the objectives that we have for agricultural technology. We to increase in productivity, as I said, that for availability, and that one of the important impediments to all this are biotic and abiotic stresses that are faced by the entire agriculture activity. You see, all the plant diseases and all the abiotic, like salinity, drought, temperature, and all these are abiotic stresses. And in all these areas, biotechnology is playing an important role, you see, and it has success stories also. And then obviously for the reduction of cost of production, the use of biofertilizers and biopesticides, and increase in fertilizer use efficiency. These are the areas where a lot of work is already being done, and it is in the field as well. And recently we have developed varieties, have developed transgenic wheat having increased fertilizer both of nitrogen and of phosphorus separately, you see. And then one of the important factors that impacts food security is, or as I said, is the nutritional uh, nutritious food, you see. And so biotechnology has been used to improve the nutritional condition of all our agriculture crops. And one of the factor has been that we are looking for varieties with a low phytate, and if we can increase vitamin A and other micronutrients, that I will talk to you about all this later on, about when we talk about our work. And similarly, in animal biotechnology as well, you can make improvement in productivity of meat and milk. And then, now the latest technologies of using genome editing is one of the very current area where you can use all these genome editing technologies to overcome some of the hazards of genetic engineering, you see. Okay, so let me and as far as Pakistan is concerned, you see the challenges to crops in Pakistan. All these crops which are grown in the field, these are the things that are, the problems with insects, with viruses, with rust, with stem borers, with all these can all be tackled with different approaches using biotechnological tools, you see. So there is an immense scope of using it. Therefore, in Pakistan also, we have had our support of biotechnology, agricultural biotechnology has been fairly good. You see, recently I published status of agriculture biotechnology in Pakistan, and we have been able to show all the research projects dealing with transgenic agriculture. Supported by HEC, supported by Punjab Agriculture Research Board, Pakistan Science Foundation, PARC, ALP projects, and so there are fairly good investment is going on in the area of agricultural biotechnology in the country, and they are working virtually in all these crops you see, including cotton, wheat, rice, maize, sugarcane, oil seeds, pulses. I mean, virtually, I will show you. I mean, virtually all these plants are being studied as to use biotechnology to improve the varieties or for particular traits. As far as I will briefly talk about some of the work that we have been doing. Our main projects at FC College that we about 7-8 years back we started. The main our flagship had been on the development of transgenic wheat with low phytate for increasing bioavailability of iron and zinc. As you all know, and I think we have been, there was a presentation also that as far as stunting and all this is concerned, I mean, these two micronutrients are the main culprits. You see, there is an acute deficiency of iron and zinc in our diet, and that has been shown in the recent the National Nutritional Survey that was conducted and was published in 2018, I think. And then that has also shown a fairly high percentage of deficiency, especially in female population of iron, which results in anemia and all other diseases, and also deficiency of zinc results in many of the urological disorders, you see. And so one of the main cause of all this is the presence of phytate in all our vegetables, also cereals, etc. Phytate is in a phosphorus compound, I mean, for storage of phosphorus, but it also chelates all the micronutrients, you see, like iron and zinc and copper and all others, and the phytates are not digestible in our alimentary canal, and so they pass out as such, and therefore it is important either to look for varieties having low phytate or to develop varieties with decreased phytates. You see, so we had produced these transgenic wheat by degrading the phytate in the endosperm, that is in the seed. We had induced a phytase gene which was expressing only in the endosperm, and that with the reduction of phytate, the bioavailability of iron and zinc was increased 3 times. We looked at the chapati also, and we have shown that the iron about 3 times and zinc about 1.5 times had been increased, you see. So this has been, we had submitted it to the NBC. NBC is the body, National Biosafety Committee, which regulates all the developments in agricultural biotechnology. So now they have allowed us to do the field trials. So we are now in the T7 generation, and so as soon as we have enough seeds, we can then give it for the national variety trials under the guidelines of NBC. The other one that is also in the field trial stage is the increasing phosphorus use efficiency in wheat through genetic engineering. This was that we were expressing the same phytase gene in the roots, you see, with the root specific promoters, with the idea of that the phytase is exuded out into the rhizosphere, and that helps in further degrading the organic P in the soil, which is available for the plants or uptake, you see. So these are the 2 areas, but we have also there are other projects now which are which have been also approved by NBC for laboratory genetic manipulation. You see, so these include all these. The one earlier that I talked about was supported by the Punjab Agriculture Research Board, and this one was supported by Pakistan Science Foundation and NSLP of PSF, you see, which is Natural Science Linkage Program, you see, okay, and uh, and so these are all the projects. And as far as another area of biofortification is that we have produced feed with increased P6, you see, which is another vitamin which is deficient, and we are required. So our approach is that wheat or seed is the best carrier of any technology. You see, if you can improve the seed, I mean, it is so easy to hand it over to the farmers, and then that is the technology that goes into the field. You see, so there are also efforts to do fortification. You see, that is to add iron EDTA or things that like that into flour, so that the iron is increased. But all that is fine with the urban population. You see, in the rural population, nobody eats wheat flour from the mill. You see, they have their own chuckies and all that, and there it is not possible to do any fortification. Our approach is that if possible, we must improve the nutritional status of the staple food itself. You see, so that, I mean, it can be easily be available to the people. You see, okay. So this one is also in the field. It is now we are in the T3 stage, and so, I mean, soon we will submit it to NBC for getting approval for field trials. You see, and then we have another very important project on enhancing fertilizer. This is especially nitrogen use efficiency, and we have been able to we have been able to we have been able to reduce transgenic lines having increased nitrogen fertilizer use efficiency, and this we have checked even by using N15 as an isotope. You see, so this is also in the E3 stage, and we are very hopeful that similarly, and this we have been using all the transcription factors for that, this for nitrogen as well and for phosphorus as well. You see, then we have transgenic approaches for the development of drought and salt tolerance. This is again in wheat, and this is also I mean, Igrar should be aware that when he was at UAF, and he had established these centers, excellent centers for food security and all that, and then they had awarded some projects, and this is the remnants or the legacies of those times. You see. So anyway, these are all other utilization of multiple transcription factors for genes for enhancing wheat. We are concentrating on wheat. You see, so many people may have some I mean, observations on that. Development of gene constructs for heat tolerance in monocots, and this is for this has been in collaboration with an industry. You see, 4B others, and they are an agri biotech company, and so we make the constructs, hand them over to this company, and they do the transformations. You see. And then genetic transformation of chickpea for better adaptation to drought and heat for increasing crop yield. So these are some of the, I mean, all focused on to the problems of agriculture, which we think that biotechnology might be able to help. You see. Now I will briefly show you the as I was mentioning that there is a fairly good amount of investment has been made in agriculture biotechnology by different departments of the government, including PARC, Punjab Agriculture Research Board, Pakistan Science Foundation, and most importantly, HEC. HEC, through its NRPU, has been supporting this area quite liberally, you see. And I mean, I can't, I have all that data collected in my book, you see, and which you probably all of you have that. And so you can see that development of biotech crops, these are the crops, cotton, as Ikrar said that, I do not agree with his statement though. But I mean, these technologies are not the cause of any debacle with cotton. You see, I can assure you that. You see, and these are all. I mean, some of them are field trials. These are generally being done by CAMP and DIPG also, and these are and some companies as well. You see, there is no company, there is no MNC involved in developing these in the field. You see, so that is probably one of the cause. I mean, if these companies are allowed also to to enter into this area, then it will provide a good competition, and it will uh, good methods can be made available, you see. So anyway, cotton and wheat, dust, drought, these are being done at NIPG, and we are doing some on biofortification, as I explained to you, and also increasing phosphorus use efficiency, dust resistance, etc., etc. And in rice, bacterial blight resistance, NIPG and CEMB have been involved in that. And then there is a lot of work on maize, which has been done by CEMB and also NIGAB. And then Monsanto and Syngenta and Pioneer, they have all done their field trials and all that. And but somehow they have not been given approval. I don't know why, but that is the state of status at the moment. Then sugarcane also, there are CAB, University of Agriculture, their Center for Agricultural Biotechnology and Biochemistry, and they are working on that. Chickpeas also, and then tobacco, potato, peanut, brassica, and others also. I have the data on that as well. But these are just to show you, there is an immense interest and activity going on in the country in all these areas, you see, and in overcoming some important problems of all these crops, you see, and similarly, there is I mean, some approvals have been given to cotton. I mean, mainly cotton and maize is the one which is still, officially. I mean, they have done all the experimental plans and data, everything, but somehow they have not been given the formal approval. You see, So I mean, these are the companies or the institutes. Origa also has done cotton, and so all these. Okay, now let me also give you a flair of things that what is happening in the world. You see, and we keep talking about some hazards of biotechnology or GMOs and all that, but the world is going on. You see, all these countries, alfalfa, canola, cotton, in all these countries, USA, these countries in which these are being cultivated, you see, herbicide tolerant, insect tolerant, these are the major traits against which all these crops have been developed. And these are the countries, you see, you see, of Argentina, Australia, Brazil, Colombia, Costa Rica, so all over the world, these are being cultivated, and more soybean. Soybean is the one which is mostly, it is, you will, if you want to get a non-transgenic soybean, you will not be able to get. You see, the entire crop of the world of soybean is basically a transgenic, you see, So so sugar beets, eggplant is very interesting. It rose to fame when Bangladesh approved the genetically modified ET eggplant in Bangladesh. You see, and then all other potato, papaya. Papaya is a very important crop for USA and also China. Hawaii is the center of papaya, and apples, squash, sugarcane. These are all edible things, you see, and because So anyway, so now I would briefly like to talk about the constraints. That why I also showed recently we had a meeting at the PM House, and Imran Khan Sahab himself chaired that, and I showed this also over there, that that what are the constraints in the adoption of agricultural biotechnology. Number one, we think that there is a very weak regulatory system, and that they needs lot of capacity building. They don't have even any technical person employed there to look after, or because all this is a technical matter, you see. And there is little financial support still, you see. I think overall, if you look, there is still relatively little financial support for agricultural biotechnology research, you see. The most important point that we highlighted was that there is a general negative perception perception of about GM crops among some of the NGOs and bureaucracy based on hearsay and non-scientific assumption. This is most important, and I'm sure that some of you will agree with me. Lukewarm support of the Agri administration to harness the full potential of this technology, and lack of awareness among the political establishment. You see, so these are the things that we have been talking about, and anyway. So the new technologies, are emerging, especially speedy plant breeding and all that. And these conventional breeding based on selection of germ plants provided by, yes, this is another thing, you see, that this conventional plant breeding based on selection of germ plants provided by international centers is no more capable of serving the needs of agriculture, you see. Our plant breeding, especially wheat and cotton to some extent also, and rice, all are dependent on providing the germ plants from the international centers. And these international centers are still not capable of absorbing all the developing technologies, and so I think we should try to develop our own technologies, our own reading systems. You see, all the new reading technologies are being developed now and used globally. This has come about due to the availability of complete genomic data of major economic crops, namely wheat, rice, and cotton. There is now a horde of genome editing technologies, starting from RNAi, zinc finger, talon, and now CRISPR-Cas, which may modify the host genome. If you know the genome of your crop, then believe you me, your breeding system can be totally overhauled. You see, So we should develop these technologies and know-how and awareness so that we can use all these technologies. And I would like to thank you all for your patient listening. And I will be happy if there are any questions which I can answer. You see, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. You have made a very elaborate case in support of biotechnology, and I owe you a clarification. When I said that cotton mess, I never meant a word against technology, but our general case of bad governance and lack of investment. And it is a very classical case of bad governance, what has happened to cotton. And in your slide on constraints, you have actually mentioned all of those facts, which I'm also highly pained. We have seen over time. And we're short of time, sir. So maybe we have to skip the questions and move on to our remaining two speakers. Our next speaker is Dr. Gu Wenliang. He is Agriculture Development Commissioner in Chinese Embassy in Islamabad. In last 18 months, he has made himself known in all major circles of government, academia, and the industry. He is one of the most sought after person. He builds bridges between institutions, government to government projects, and also business to business projects. I've had the pleasure of working with him, and we have done quite a few useful and interesting interventions. I invite Dr. Gu Wenliang to come to the dais. He is present here in person, and we want to hear from him. Thank you, Dr. Gu.
Well, thank you for the introduction from Dr. Ikra. I'm very glad to participate in this seminar organized by Pakistan Academy of Sciences. And the theme of this technical section is about the pandemic and the food security. So since I think Dr. Ikra has already talked a lot about the food security, and a lot of speakers before me had introduced the new technology which can help to improve the food security. So my topic today may be more focused on the CPEC agricultural cooperation. So it might be more political but less technical and academic. So I think. So I hope that everyone would be interested and will not feel boring about it, because it's already past the lunchtime even in China, and also I know it's a little bit near the lunchtime in Pakistan. So please hang on that. Well, I have before I start, I have talked with some people from the media, from the academia, from the industry. And people always ask me that what is real happening in agricultural cooperation and the CPEC, since we haven't seen any tangible outcomes during this cooperation. So today I would like to more explain the situation about what is happening between our cooperation and what the progress we have made, and what the suggestion we have to further enhance the cooperation. Well, I have been in Pakistan for more than 1.5 years, and I have visited a lot of places like Tabaka, Karachi in Sindh province, and even Quetta in Balochistan, and Faisalabad, Lahore, Sahiwal in Punjab. So I know the situations here. In fact, I think the agricultural cooperation under the CPEC had three main purposes. First is to help Pakistan to improve the agricultural research sustainability. Second, we want to promote the Pakistan's export-oriented economy development. And third, we want to introduce more advanced agricultural production factors into Pakistan. And these are the three areas which I have done during the past 1.5 years. So first, for the agricultural research sustainability area. Mostly we are working with the public sector, including the government department and the research institute, to enhance the research capacity building so that we could ensuring the national food security. I think people know that last year Pakistan has suffered the serious locust plague, that which is the most serious in nearly 27 years. So the Chinese government has sent the expert team on locust, and also the Chinese government has provided like 600 tons of pesticides and 70 high efficiency sprayers, and also with 12 drones to Pakistan. I think which we have seen that the Pakistani government has successfully controlled the locust disaster. And furthermore, based on the cooperation on the plant protection, our two governments have signed the MOU to enhance the plant protection area. So the Chinese government will set up a plant protection sustainability control center in Pakistan. And this is what we have done in the G2G level. Do you know that in G2G level, we also have some mechanisms like a JWG working group on agriculture. We hold the meetings annually. And the last year, we hold the JWG meeting on video, and we have talked a lot on the plant protection. And this year, we are right now, we are moving maybe to the animal disease control. And currently, our two governments are negotiating about the MOU to enhance the cooperation in animal disease control, which I think is also very important, can help Pakistan to improve the livestock sector and also to help to improve the export of the meat process. And also, you know, in the next year, we will establish like 4 agriculture joint research labs and 4 demonstration centers, and also provide a bunch of research equipment and machinery to Pakistan, which I think this project will be implemented next year. And furthermore, we have also provided a lot of training course on bilateral and multilateral training course. You know, these days I have sent a lot of the nomination request to the honorable vice chancellors from the universities and the research university to call for some nominations for the participants. So each year, normally the Chinese government will provide like more than 10 bilateral training courses specifically in agricultural area. And before the pandemic, all the participants from Pakistan can go to China to join that training course. And right now we are holding the training course online. But I think after the pandemic, we are encouraging more Pakistani participants to go to China and to join that training seminars. And also, the latest progress between our G2G cooperation is that we are planning to send the senior expert team to Pakistan maybe next year when the pandemic situation is better. And also, we are considering to dispatch technical expert team to Pakistan and organize the trainings locally so that we could train more people, more technical and more farmers to spread the new technology. So moving to the second part, it's about basically it's about the agri-products export. We know that Pakistan's economy is based on the export-oriented economy, and the majority export is the agro product. So what we want to do, we want to strengthen the cooperation in agricultural trade, and also we want to promote the value-add processing for those agri products, so that we can help this product to match the international standards, so that you can have more market. Currently, you know, during the last several months, we have helped more Pakistani rice traders to register in the General Administration of Customs of China. So currently, right now, there will be around like 30 or 40 more trade dealers can export rice to China. It's already registered. And, you know, furthermore, our two countries is working on to sign more agri-product inspection and quarantine protocol, because based on this protocol, Pakistani agri-product can be exported to China. Currently, there's just rice, mango, citrus, dry nuts, and honey, and maybe seafood can be exported to China. So we want more agri-products export to China. That means we should sign more protocols. So this year, I think our two governments will sign the protocols on onion. That means this year, onion can go into the Chinese market. And we are further moving on the protocols about the cherries, potatoes, and the dairy product, and even some more areas. So by doing this, we are hoping that more Pakistani agri-product can export to China. And also, I always think that the meat product in Pakistan is the most potential in China market, because we import a lot of meat product around the world, and the livestock sector in Pakistan, I know that we produce a lot of meat products, dairy products, so this is quite a potential. So, but you know, due to the foot and mouth disease, those products are not allowed to export to China. So we are trying to build the foot and mouth disease free zones, so that this product can be exported to China. And also, we are encouraging more Chinese enterprise to invest in the area like cold storage and cold chain logistics and food processing. As we know that there's a huge food waste in Pakistan. Each year we produce surplus vegetables, fruit, eggs, dairy products, which due to the lack of processing ability, so we waste a lot. And so we want to enhance such ability, which can also help to improve the economy of this country. And also, I would like to move into the third part. So the third part is about we are trying to bring the advanced element for agricultural production to Pakistan through the public sector and the private sector cooperation. You know, under this pandemic, the business delegation, the businessmen, and the trade dealers, it's very difficult to visit China, even to visit Pakistan. So how do we solve these problems? So this year, the embassy coordinate the China Economic Net and the China Machinery Equipment Corporation to set up a platform. We call it the China-Pakistan Agricultural and Industrial Cooperation Information Platform. Our platform, the aim of our platform is to collect all the stakeholders from the government department, the research institutions, the associations and the chambers and even the enterprises between our two countries. We want to collect this group together to share each representative's idea and proposal, so that we want to make a perfect match for each counterpart, so that we could enhance the B2B cooperation. And since our platform was successfully launched in January 26 this year, we have held like 3 online seminars focusing on seedlings and livestock and fishery, and also about the food processing. And the food processing similar, we just held yesterday, and we cooperate with the KP government. We are focusing on the honey, on the teas, the dairy product, and olives, which is, I think, is quite potential in KP, and also have huge market in China. And also, besides that, we have also organized some like industrial matching video meetings. We have, with the help from Dr. Ikra, we have organized the matching meeting on buffalo business and the sugarcane and also chili contract farming. You know, for buffalo, the Royal Group from China want to introduce the buffalo embryo technology to Pakistan, which can enhance the livestock, you know, by providing the quality and the best embryo of the buffalo genetic material, which can enhance the production of milk. And also the Royal Group will also like to set up the milk and dairy product processing unit in Pakistan, as well as they will set up the food and mouth disease free zones. This is for the buffalo business. And for the sugarcane, we want to introduce the sugarcane healthy virus-free seedlings, which is common use in China. You know, in China, the sugarcane production, we're using the sugarcane seedlings by using the tissue culture technology, which the seedlings virus-free and grows fast. And by together that, we also combine with the sowing machines and the harvest machine for sugarcane. So which I think if we bring this new technology to Pakistan, we could hugely enhance the yield of sugarcane locally, which makes Pakistan have more sugar. Maybe it can fulfill the domestic need and also can export to the foreign countries. And another area is for the chili. You know, the Chinese company has developed a model of chili contract farming. They provide the new varieties of in Chinese new chili varieties to the local farmers, and the local farmers will not need to pay anything. You just need to grow that seed, and the Chinese company will provide the technical assistance to you, and the Chinese company will also pay for all the harvest from the farmers, so that the farmers will get more benefit from this project. You know, from the calculation from these companies, one local farmer, if you grow 1 acres of chilies for one harvest, you can get more than 100,000 rupees. I think that is a huge income compared to some other crops, which also can help to the poverty alleviation in Pakistan. So this is what we have done in this B2B cooperation. And furthermore, you know, right now I'm also cooperate with the CPAC authority. We want to set up more corporate farming in Pakistan using the latest technology in China, like the smart technology, the irrigation technology, the new machinery, and even the new varieties. So I think people will know that this arrangement is under implemented, And soon there will be some news after the JCC meeting. And this is the 3 part for what I have done during these months. I have stayed in Pakistan. And basically for my personal, I have some suggestions, which I think could further enhance our cooperation. The first one, I think the government department should introduce more policies to facilitate the introduction of advanced agricultural production sectors. That, for example, we can allowing the earlier and pilot test of mature viruses, technology, and machineries in a certain area, so that the people, the farmers in Pakistan can see the outcomes of this new technology, and also which will attract more investors from China. The second, what I'm thinking is that when talking about the export to China, I think most trade dealers is considering is what we have in Pakistan and what we have in surplus that can be exported. But to be honest, you haven't see from this direction. You need to think that what does Chinese market need so that you can enhance the export. And you know, China is a West country. In different region, there's a different demand, right? So if you export the mangoes to the southern part of China, where you don't have the competitive advantage, because you know China is the second largest mango production country in the world, and also the majority mango plantation is in the southern part. So once you want to enhance the mango export, you should focus on the western area of China, like Xinjiang or some other area provinces. And also, we need to think what is the market competitive advantage product in China. You know, I always feel that I can tell you that China produce the largest citrus in the world. And also we produce also a lot of vegetables and fruit. So we need to think what's the customer's need to China so that you can better export. This is what I mean for the agriculture export. And the third suggestion is that we should like to improve the mechanism of the cooperation between the public and the private sector, especially the transnational. Because since the same situation happens in China, the research institute in China, they have a lot of new technology or new outcomes, but always this institute is feel to apply to use this new technology because of the business risk. So we should like to enhance such mechanism which to protect the legitimate interest for all the parties, including the intellectual property rights. Okay, this is several of my brief on the progress and the suggestions for the CPEC agricultural cooperation. And finally, I would like to say that, you know, just like Dr. Ikra have mentioned, the embassy is like a bridge to connect our two countries. So every day or every week, I receive a lot of proposals from Pakistani side, which we want to look for a Chinese investor to make some joint venture, and we look for this new technology, and we want to collaborate with some like a research institute or agricultural university in China. So this, and I want to say that the embassy is glad to be the golden bridge, which to share the information from both our country effectively so that we can enhance our cooperation more precisely and effectively. Well, that is all my speech today. I would like to thanks for all your interest. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gu. Very elaborate, and you have given us a lot of clarity on where we stand in agriculture projects under CPEC and what is the future outlook. I'm sorry, we are running out of time, so maybe you can discuss with them in person. Our last speaker is on gender mainstreaming. She will join us from Uzbekistan, Dr. Dilfuza. She has a title, Impact of COVID-19 on Food Security and Livelihood of Women Farmers. This is really a significant but largely ignored segment of our discourse. So I invite Dr. Dilfuza for her presentation. She's not there? आई नहीं सुबह से नहीं है You sure? Okay, then, ladies and gentlemen, we have last speaker. She's not online, so and we are already short of time. Also, we have overrun. I would like to thank all my speakers and co-organizer, Dr. Kausar Malik Sahib. I think I have learned quite a bit during past 2+ hours. We have learned from Dr. Kadambos Sadiq that we need to diversify our diets if we want to match the nutritional challenge in a country where 40% of the population is malnourished. In that diversification, he has made a very strong case for legumes, dale. And then our genetic resource person has given us hope that National Agriculture Research Center houses a large collection of germplasm, which is a hope for future. Dr. Wu from Chinese Academy of Sciences presented a case on forecasting and decision support systems. Soybean intercropping very strongly touted by Dr. Muhammad Ali Raza. Our two speakers from engineer speakers from Australia and Canada made a good case for precision agriculture. Malik Saab, as usual, gave us a comprehensive rundown on what is up there for us in biotechnology, even though it is yet to be capitalized. It's not properly capitalized. He also made a mention that HEC has made a lot of investment into that, and that is a good recognition. But that was once upon a time. So let's see that that ever gets revived again. But once upon a time, that was the case. And then our CPEC potential and what is already in place and where the future is headed. So with this, brief capping of the event, I'm grateful for your cooperation, and I would now like to step aside and back to Dr. Zabta Khan.
Thank you very much. A big applause for Iqrar Ahmed Khan. इतनी ज़्यादा मेहनत की और आप लोग इसको. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and those who are online. Professor Kim and all other friends are still there. I'm really grateful. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to tell you that we have a good friend of the Academy, Dr. Mukhtar, former chairman, Higher Education Commission, Deputy Director General, SESCO, and I don't know many. But thank you very much, sir, for coming. And also we have Vila from SESCO. I think that relationship is still on. And I saw him when we didn't have this beard and everything, and now today all white here. Now, there are two things. One, that we will have a lunch-on meeting, the front row people, those who are sitting here in the guest house. We will be having lunch while talking to each other. And the rest of the people will have lunch there. But because you are in majority before lunch, therefore another temptation is to have a photograph also when we finish here. So let's have a photograph outside and then we disperse for lunch and prayers. And before that, now I request Khalid Mahmood Khan Sahab, Secretary General Sahab, and Dr. Mukhtar to come here and to give souvenirs to this session of today. So can you please, sir, stand over here? President, Pakistan Academy of Sciences, former Chairman, Higher Education Commission, and Secretary General Sahab. I request you to be here, sir, please. Now, the first of all is our last webinars, a very good presentation by Dr. Mushtaq. Professor Mushtaq will receive his souvenir from these three gentlemen. ये टीपू की इंस्ट्रक्शंस बड़ी होती कड़ाकेदार हैं उनकी सेहत देख के ये लोग डर जाते हैं और इधर उधर हो जाते हैं तो सर द नेक्स्ट वन इज द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट वन दैट इज प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर इकरार खान थैंक यू वेरी मच सर फॉर एक्सीलेंट मॉडरेशन you deserve a very good shield that you can keep and remember for a while sir. थोड़ा सा सर इस कैमरे की तरफ भी देखते रहिए कीजिए जब भी आप शील्ड दें क्योंकि वो रिकॉर्डिंग हो रही है और बाद में ऑनलाइन होगी कौसर मलिक की शील्ड है I request President to receive it and then it's the President who can somehow manage to deliver him. So sir, Khalid Mahmood Khan Sahab, I can do that if you want me. Okay. कौसर मलिक साहब आपकी शील्ड मैंने ले ली वापस करना मैं ट्राई कर रहा था पठान ना ले लेकिन ये लोग आपका शील्ड खाना चाहते हैं एंड आई रिक्वेस्ट इकरार खान टू रिसीव a shield on behalf of Professor Commodore Sadiq. You will somehow send it to him. Please receive a shield of his souvenir here. Please, sir. He is from Australia, and this will go to Australia. It's now Ikrar how to send it to Australia. The next one, an excellent presentation by Dr. Sadruddin Siddiqui. Can you please receive your souvenir from? Last but not the least, Dr. Gu Wenliang, if I pronounce it properly. Thank you very much, sir, for serving Pakistan. We are really grateful. And we, Ikrar, please come and join them. We expect that more goods will come to Pakistan in the time. Faik Bilal की एक तोहफा है वो आपको इंशाल्लाह लंच के बाद देंगे इसलिए कि we want you to be here till lunch time. So sir, with this उनको we managed to send them, sir. So we request you that these front row people kindly go to the guest house. We have a lunch-on meeting, and the rest of the people, please have your lunch, and we will be back exactly 2:15. But sir, let's have a photograph outside and then disperse, because you are in. Please make arrangement outside for a photograph. Lo bacha. Professor Kim, have your lunch and see you afternoon, 2:15. Thank you very much. We have a break of 45 minutes. Thank you and bye-bye. I don't know मेरा हाथ हिलता है कि नहीं.